Hello guys, welcome to Open Techno. Today I'm going to introduce you to the WYBOT S3, a fully autonomous pool robot. And why do I say this? Because it's a robot that can go days and days and days without any human intervention. This is because it has a solar panel that can store energy and transfer it to the robot when it needs it, as well as having an external dirt container where this robot, when it finishes cleaning, will deposit all the dirt. And this way, it has much greater autonomy. In addition, it's a robot that, through its camera and sensors, will be able to create a 3D map of our pool, and in this way, optimize its cleaning routes as much as possible. A perfect robot for anyone who has a pool that, for example, they won't be using for several days and want it to be cleaned daily without any human intervention. It's a robot that, I have to say, isn't cheap, but it's true that it includes all kinds of technologies to allow us to have a super thorough cleaning of our pool without any human attention. As I was saying, it's completely autonomous. But before I explain more features, how it works, and what I think about this robot, let's take a look at the unboxing, what's included in the box, and also how to assemble it because, well, there's a bit of a trick to it. There are quite a few things we need to put together. Let's quickly see what comes in the box of the WYBOT S3. The first thing we'll find is an instruction manual with all the accessories that come with the robot itself. The robot, the solar panel, the charging and emptying station, the stands, screws, and other accessories that will be essential for us during assembly. Also, I see here that we get a small guide about which pools are best suited for this robot, as well as some usage tips. Here we also have the mobile app, and here are the steps on how to install our robot, which we will follow next. We lift up the foam and we will find the solar panel, which will be used for the automatic charging of the robot. Let's try to get it out. I'm not sure if it's attached to something else, but it's pretty heavy. Here you can see the solar panel. We have the power cable for the robot station, and then we have two hoses that, so to speak, will suck up the dirt to empty the robot of all the debris it collects from the pool. Here's the solar panel, which we'll set aside. Here on the side, we have an additional filter that says it's for use in dirtier pools. Well, it's a filter we can add at some point, so for now, we're just gonna set it aside and take out the robot. Here we have the base that will be inside the pool and where the robot will position itself when it needs to rest, clean itself, and recharge. This is the base that goes inside the pool. Lastly, we have a filter, which I suppose we'll need to install somewhere to collect the dirt that the robot itself picks up. And if you come closer over here, you'll see that on the last layer we have wiring stuff, these are more filters, the hoses for the debris, instructions, chargers. Because of course, this robot can also be connected to a traditional outlet. And finally, let's take it out and you'll see what the robot looks like, which, as you can see, is much smaller than the solar panel. And what about the rest of the things we had taken out so far? Here we already have some cameras that it will use for detecting dirt with artificial intelligence and so on, the rollers to move around, clean the bottom of the pool, and so on. So let's take all of this to the pool and set it up. Let's start the installation by setting up the solar panel first. Right next to the edge of the pool and with the legs that have screws to adjust the height. We should raise the back part so that the solar panel tilts over the pool. This way. Now what we need to do is take the base where it will be charged and empty all the dirt from the robot and put this stand on it, this stand. What it's going to do is connect our base station with the solar panel so the robot can stop there to charge, empty itself, and so on. We're going to place the stand as follows. We simply have some hooks that we insert into the base, pull up firmly, and it will be fixed in place. Now it won't come out. We have some tabs here that keep this stand from coming off, and now we're going to place it on the solar panel. Next, what we're gonna do is place the base in the pool and insert the stand into this little area here that's prepared on the solar panel. This way, we anchor, so to speak, the base to the solar panel. And finally, the only thing we would have to do now is adjust the height, the distance, and so on so that the solar panel is right at the edge of the pool. But we can also add the safety screws here, which I'll get now. Above all, when you finish installing the solar panel and the charging and cleaning base, you need to make sure that the base is completely attached to the wall of the pool. Because otherwise, if not, when the robot comes up from the pool and wants to start charging or cleaning, it won't be able to because there will be a gap, so we need to make sure it's completely attached to the wall of the pool. Finally, to make it look nice and to cover up all these pipes and everything, we can put on this decorative cover. Regarding the back of the solar panel, I want to show you a couple of things. Here we have a connector to plug the solar panel into house power. What is this for? Well, for example, if we live in the north, in Cantabria, or it's summer, but we've had a few cloudy days and the robot isn't charging with the solar panel, what we can do is run a cable from the house and connect it to the electrical grid, even though we can use the solar panel on a daily basis. So just so you know, we have that connector here, but we're gonna make it work entirely with the solar panel because today is a pretty sunny day. On the other hand, as I mentioned, this robot works autonomously, it cleans automatically, and it also charges with this solar panel. Here we have the drawer that will store all the dirt from the vacuum robot. This is a plastic drawer that simply has some tabs here, and we'll take out this bag that will contain all the dirt it vacuums up. This uses some Velcro, so at any time we can detach it from here, clean it wherever we want, in the trash or wherever, remove all the dirt, and put it back with the Velcro. Here we have the robot, the WYBOT S3, and we need to know a couple of things. First, the robot has a compartment, and when we open it, the first thing we find here is a filter, okay? This is where all the main dirt that the robot vacuums up will stay. And we have two types of filters. We have one for daily use, and we have a replacement that tells us when to use it. The pools are clean or they are extremely dirty. So if the pool is very, very dirty, we should use this one that will pick up the larger debris and then use the other one for daily maintenance. We have this one with much smaller pores, and in the end, it will trap the finer dirt that we might not be able to see at first glance. So just so you know, we get these two filters, and depending on whether we are maintaining the pool or want to do a deep cleaning, we will use one or the other. Lastly, we have a filter that came separately from the robot, and we need to place it with this little green part facing up and right next to the fan, like this, right here. There, the filter that also came with it is now completely installed, and now we can close it up and start using our WYBOT S3. Let's start up the solar panel and the robot. The first thing we need to do is press the start button on the solar panel for a few seconds, and even though you can't see it, it's already purple, so it's already turned on. Now the next thing we need to do is the same procedure with the robot. We hold down the start button, and here, I don't know if you can see it, but we already have some little lights that indicate the robot is on. Now what we need to do is put it in the pool. Now, while the robot is repositioning itself, what we're going to do is tell it to return to the home station. So I press the home button, and this will connect with the robot and make it return to the station. However, in the meantime, what we're also going to do is connect it to the mobile app. To do this, we hold down both buttons at the same time for 5 seconds. Now, to add a new device in the app, we simply tap on Add. It detects our WYBOT S3 and we tap Confirm. We're going to connect it to our Wi-Fi network. There, it's connecting to the Wi-Fi network we specified. Now, we need to accept all the terms it gives us, and we're going to select the pool. The pool has a rectangular shape. It has a simple shape, but with steps. It has some tiles around the pool, and with this, we set the name of the pool. We're going to say that we select that one and confirm. Here it already tells us, well, that the solar base is at 73 and charging, and it tells us that the robot has 58% battery. And also that we have an update we need to do, so let's do it. Let's eat, and let's wait for the solar panel to finish charging only with sunlight. While we were setting up the mobile app, the robot automatically went back to the base, which is what we told it to do by pressing the home button, and it started an automatic cleaning. That's why you saw some water come out, but this first cleaning isn't really needed since the robot is already clean. But yeah, while we were setting up the mobile app, the robot already came back, docked itself on the base, and right now it would be charging and cleaning itself if that were necessary. Let's quickly talk about the design of this robot. It's a typical design, although it's true that it has different shapes that make it, well, more visually complex. It has more edges and so on, so it's a bit geometric, so to speak. What do we find on this robot? Well, hey, on its front part, we're going to find a handle that lets us pull it out with the hook when it's inside the pool and we want to grab it or simply use it as a grip. Then, if we turn it over, we'll see that it has tracks on the sides that help it move, and 2 rollers on the front that are used to scrub all the dirt from the pool and then suck it up into this lower rear part. Also, well, it has a little wheel here that I suppose serves as support on the front part. Let's take a look at different things. We're going to have 2 ultrasonic sensors and a camera that will help us when we clean the bottom of the pool. It will use this to recognize objects, such as leaves or insects that have fallen in, and go directly after them. However, when we switch it to wall mode, it won't use this camera system and will simply clean by making multiple passes. Now on the upper front part, we find the motor, which we'll talk about its features later, the power button located on this top part, and also when it's turned on, it allows us to select the cleaning mode we want. On a small panel with LED lights, we simply click and select between a full cleaning, the floor, the walls, or turbo mode. Had I mentioned the floor to you before? Also, if we want to, for example, update the software or something like that, we have to keep it charging. Here we have a cover that, when removed, reveals a power connector, okay? This power supply would be for when we bring it into our house to update it or if we want to charge it. So apart from the base I was talking about earlier, solar, now that you've seen how the installation works, let's move on to talk about how it starts. So to speak, its operation. Well, it starts working once we throw it into the pool. The first thing we need to do after setting up the mobile app, which is, so to speak, the brain behind how this robot works. The first thing we need to do is press the home button on the solar panel. This way, we make sure it returns home and keeps both the solar panel and the robot, the WYBOT S3, charged. At that moment, we can find in the mobile app, which has several options, 2 initial sections. First, the battery and the status of the solar panel, if it's receiving sunlight, if it's charging, what its battery percentage is, and then the battery percentage and the status, where it is, whether in the pool, returning home, or if this robot, the WYBOT S3, is already at the base station. Let's begin the first cleaning. Why is the first cleaning important? Because during this cleaning, we have a beta option, okay? It doesn't work perfectly yet, but it already gives us an idea of the usefulness of the sensors that this WYBOT has. It's going to create a 3D map for us, okay? A map that, it's true, isn't perfect, but it can already start to give us an idea. Well, it can draw the shape of the pool. In our case, even though it looks like a rectangular pool, it isn't. It has some angles that are sharper or wider. And well, it already starts to detect all of that in this map that it creates for us inside the app. Now, once we've done this first cleaning, we can start programming things for it, like, for example, starting a pool cleaning, where we can tell it what we want cleaned. We can select for it to clean only the floor, only the walls, and then the floor, or to do a complete cleaning. On the other hand, if we just want to do a quick floor cleaning, we can also do that. Imagine a swimsuit covered in sand falls and the floor gets sandy. To clean it fast, there's a turbo cleaning mode that quickly vacuums the floor. In addition, we also have the option to tell it to do an automatic cleaning. How does this work? Well, as you've seen during the installation, the base station, that is, the solar panel, plus the little device that goes into the water, will have a suction system. All the dirt that the robot collects will be transferred to that base station, to that solar panel, which has a fabric container that will collect all the dirt from the pool, okay? So we can force this at any time if we want to move the dirt from the robot to the base station. Also, once the robot is, for example, in the pool, and we see a specific spot of dirt and want to go to it, we can control it manually using the remote control, that is, with the remote control. We will be able to tell it to go forward, backward, left, or right, and finally, we can also set it to do a daily cleaning. That is, for example, if we want it to clean the walls on Mondays, the floor on Tuesdays, do a complete cleaning on Wednesdays, and not clean on Thursdays. We can do all of that from the mobile app, and as I mentioned, this robot is completely autonomous. It receives sunlight and works and cleans automatically. Well, hey, it's going to work every day of the week according to how we program it. Finally, it has a cleaning system that's optimized through the camera, meaning the camera is supposed to be able to detect things like leaves, insects, or dirt that might be at the bottom, and go precisely to locate it and vacuum it up. Although, well, this mode, I also have no way of knowing if it's actually detecting something and going for it, or if it's just following its usual path in the end. But the app lets us activate or deactivate this mode during cleanings. As for the mobile app, above all, I would say it lacks optimization. When it comes to updating the data, like the robot's battery percentage and the solar panel, the app shows it in real time on the phone. Because it's true that many times you have to close the app and reopen it to get those updated data. Also, about the 3D mapping of the pool, even though it does it more or less well, it's true that the app isn't fully integrated. The map is missing some things. We can put it in a lot of different directions. We can put it vertically, horizontally. I think the brand could work on that a bit more, especially the visualization of that 3D map I'm talking about. Other than that, it's an app that shows us the essential information, the information we need to know, and we can also set up the type of pool we have. I guess that helps the robot when it comes to planning the routes. Now we're gonna talk about the routes. The robot supposedly always knows its exact location in the pool. Now, when we tell it to go back home, it usually does it very well. It's in a corner of the pool, it moves right in front of the base, goes up, and starts charging. Usually it does this very well. But it's true that there have been times when we don't really know what happened to it. Suddenly it wanted to go up, and it wasn't perfectly aligned. So it tried to go up to the base, couldn't do it, backed up and tried again, and it kept trying to get onto the base without success. However, we took it out of the pool, put it back in, and it worked perfectly. I guess these are things that will, so to speak, improve in future software updates. We tried a WYBOT last year, and it's improved a lot. The mobile app is much better now. What about the connection? Because with the previous model, the one we tried last year, it's true that it was a bit harder for us. In this case, getting it to work was very easy, and honestly, more or less everything has been working. First of all, let's talk about the battery life of this robot. Once this robot is fully charged, it has a theoretical battery life of 3 hours of operation. However, in our experience, we haven't really been able to verify if that's actually the case. Because when it finishes cleaning the pool completely, it returns to the charging station where it gets energy from the sun. So it really doesn't make much sense to talk about this robot's battery life, because as I said, the whole point is that it's completely autonomous when it comes to charging itself and continuing to work. However, if we want to recharge it manually, it will take about 3.5 hours. Now, if, for example, it goes out to clean in the morning and then for the rest of the day. If you have strong summer sun, by the end of the day it will be fully charged. The next day it will go out again to clean without us having to worry about manual charging. Of course, I want to point out that if you are in an area where you know it's going to be cloudy this week, there won't be any sun, and you still want to keep cleaning the pool, you can either plug the robot directly into the wall to charge it or run the cable out to the charging station. And that instead of using the sun to charge itself and the robot, it uses the power grid from our house. Also, I should mention that the base station itself doesn't charge the robot in real time, but it also has an internal battery. So while the robot is working, for example, it will be able to store energy to transfer it to the robot later. That is, we have a battery both in the robot and in the base station. Now, I also want to emphasize that the base station has a waste collection bag. Up to 10 liters of capacity, which will be all the waste that we will be able to store, this waste. It's inside a fabric bag that has some Velcro, so when it's full, we'll be able to take it out very easily. With some tabs, we remove the Velcro, empty the bag, rinse it with water, clean it, and we can reuse it again. This robot is recommended for pools of up to 230 square meters, meaning very, very large pools. That's why I was telling you that it always knows exactly where it is. If it starts cleaning and runs low on battery, it returns, recharges, and resumes cleaning. I'll share my experience next, but first I want to clarify something. The price of this robot, which is 2,500 euros, is quite high. It's a price that fits anyone who wants a fully autonomous robot. But if what you want is a robot that you just put in the pool once or twice a week and it does a cleaning for you, Well, this might not be the product for you and not what you're looking for, so I encourage you to look for other types of products without that solar station, without that self-emptying feature, and that can lower the price for you. However, the price of this robot is mainly due to two things: the solar station, which gives us complete autonomy and longer operating time between manual cleanings where a person has to intervene, and also the artificial vision feature that optimizes routes and ultimately allows us to increase the size of the pools we clean. Now, if what you have is a small pool, and as I said, you're gonna use it a couple of times a week, this is not the right kind of device for you. As for how it works, I think its performance has improved a lot compared to the WYBOT we tested last summer. They've improved the connection and installation, which caused us trouble last year, and this time, everything worked. Right from the start, it's true that it follows a path that seems pretty precise, really going after the dirt. And the part about not having to worry, we're at home, we just tell it to start cleaning and we don't have to physically move it or charge it or anything, well that's great. And in the end, it makes the whole process much calmer and less tiring, so to speak, for the person managing it. I think this robot has a lot of potential, but the brand still has work to do regarding the software that manages all the movements it performs. Having said that, I think I've covered most about the robot. If you have questions, leave them in the comments and we'll respond as soon as possible. If you found this video interesting and you like this robot, don't forget to leave a like. And with that said, see you in the next video. Goodbye.